Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group KAD1 about Af'alul Ibad between Ahlu Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Jabariyyah and Qadariyyah. So, from this course is Islamic Aqidah Management in Malaysia and lecturer name Dr. Radi bin Ibrahim. Group members IZZATI binti AHMAD 11721118 and ATIKAH binti KHAIRON 11721118 and SYUHADA binti ROSLI 11721121. AINUN JARIAH binti MOHAMAD 11721128 and NATASHA binti ABDULLAH 11721129 and SITI RAHMATUN binti MOHAMED ZIDI 117214. Okay, my name is ATIKAH binti KHAIRON. My matric number 117218. So I will start the introductions. Af'alul Ibad, according to Ahlu Sunnah, is Allah gives human being the choice to do all action in the form of choice or choice based on their intellect and the revelations conveyed. So why according to Jabariyyah, human don't have the slightest choice and freedom in doing something. So the opinion of this group make people believe that God makes a person forced to commit immorality or prohibitions of God, and man goes to hell due to the questions. Therefore, the opinion has to be rejected by the scholars because it can rely on training to the most holy Allah from the nature of lake. So the explicitity is about the Jabariyyah views is mostly to lake the powers of Allah, which is Allah is make a force the human beings to do something bad, and then force them to go to the hell. So that was a force, and that was a weakness from the powers of Allah. So there is a view was rejected the others of scholars. Okay, lastly, the Qadariyyah sect state that all human behavior is done according to one's own will, not by God's destiny. The Qadariyyah sect agrees that there is no good reason to base all human action on the deeds of God. Okay, the verse of the Quran that support this opinion are Surah Al-Kahfi 29. So actually, I take this book from the Ashraf Al-Af'alullah and Af'alul Ibad. So it is the truth from the Lord of y'all, then whosoever will let him disbelieve. We have prepared for disbelievers fire. It tends enclosed them. If they ask for showers, they will be showered with water like to molten lead which burned the faces. So calamitous the drink and ill the resting place. So Ahlu Sunnah view is the most accurate because God chooses human beings based on intellect and revelation in doing something or an act. However, the occurrence of a thing or deed is with the permission of God. Allah said in Surah At-Takwir, ayah 29, and ye will not unless it be that Allah will it, the Lord of creation. So this verse shows that human beings have their own choices and this created Allah. So if Allah does not want that to happen, it will not be happen, and that is the provision's destiny by Allah. So next will be continued. My pleasure, friends.
My name is Siti RAHMATUN binti Muhammad ZIDI. Now I will continue to identify and define the issues. One of the important topics in Islamic theology is the problem of human action, Af'alul Ibad. Ahlu Sunnah wal Jama'ah argue Af'alul Ibad is human action occur by their own will and choice but have to do with the power and will of God. While according to Jabariyyah, is human have not the slightest choice and freedom in doing something. All human are in accordance with the will of Allah completely, whether good or bad, believers and disbelievers. In addition, the Qadariyyah state that all human behavior is done according to one's will. Humans have the power to do all their action of their own free will, whether good or evil. So it can be concluded here that Ahlu Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Jabariyyah and Qadariyyah have different opinion on the problem of Af'alul Ibad. Therefore, a more clear and true discussion will be discussed in this study. That's all.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is NATASHA binti Abdullah. My matric number 1172129. Next, I will continue with the presentation on Ahli Sunnah views on the issues of Al-Ibad. Al-Asyairah. For next, Al-Asyairah. For Asyairah group, they argue on Af'alul Ibad that human have Al-Kasbun, where the human kasbun show the creation of Allah powers and will to create the deeds of his servant. Bagi kumpulan Asyairah, mereka berpendapat mengenai isu Af'alul Ibad ni bahawa manusia mempunyai Al-Kasbun, di mana kasbun manusia ni menunjukkan penciptaan kepada kekuasaan dan kehendak Allah untuk mencipta perbuatan hamba-hambanya. According to Al-Ash'ari, the meaning of Al-Kasbun is a new act, hadith, and the act occurs from Qudrah Qadim, which is the maker in the creator. Al-Kasbun is something new, hadith, derived from Al-Muqtasib. Menurut Al-Ash'ari, makna Al-Kasbun adalah perbuatan yang baru iaitu hadis dan perbuatan itu berlaku dari Qudrah Qadim yang mana pembuatnya adalah penciptanya. Al-Kasbun adalah sesuatu yang baru iaitu hadis yang berasal dari Al-Muqtasib. Al-Muqtasib iaitu manusia yang mengerjakan sesuatu perbuatan tersebut. Okay, next. Although Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala create all this, although Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala create all this, but Imam Ash'ari assert that there is a concept that is Al-Kasbun, which means human deeds that arise through the intermediation between ability power and the will of God. Walaupun Allah SWT menciptakan semua perbuatan, tetapi Imam Ash'ari menegaskan bahawa ada konsep Al-Kasbun yang bermaksud perbuatan manusia yang timbul melalui perantaraan antara kemampuan atau usaha manusia dengan kehendak Tuhan. Imam Ash'ari also stressed that human actions need to be distinguished whether the act is a forced act, ittirari, or an act of choice, ikhtiyari. Next, Al-Maturidiah. For the group of Al-Maturidiah, they adhere to the concept of justice of Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, that independence and will lies in human beings, and Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala does not arbitrarily impose punishment, but based on the freedom given by Allah SWT to human beings to do good or evil. Bagi golongan Al-Maturidiyah pula, mereka berpegang pada konsep keadilan Allah, bahawa kebebasan dan kehendak terletak pada manusia dan Allah tidak sewenang-wenangnya menjatuhkan hukuman. Tetapi berdasarkan kebebasan yang diberikan oleh Allah ni kepada manusia untuk buat baik atau jahat. Al-Maturidi has a different theory of Al-Kasbun from Ash'ari, where Al-Maturidi state Al-Kasbun is a force entrusted by God to man, and man is free to choose either to do it or not. With this kind of freedom of choice, then there will be reward and punishment. Al-Maturidi argues that Al-Kasbun is active, which determined by human. Al-Maturidi mempunyai teori Al-Kasbun yang berbeza dari Ash'ari, di mana Al-Maturidi menyatakan Al-Kasbun ni adalah kekuatan yang diamanahkan oleh Tuhan kepada manusia, dan manusia ni bebas memilih sama ada untuk melakukan sesuatu perbuatan itu atau tidak. Dengan kebebasan memilih ini, maka akan adalah ganjaran pahala dan juga hukuman. While Ash'ari argue that human beings do not have any ability to create their deeds, but they only have al-kasbun, which is passive. Al-Maturidi also argued that the existence of cause istitalah appears along with deeds. Next. Next, Jabariyyah views on the issue of Af'alul Ibad. Next. Next slide. Okay. Their understanding is denying free will upon humans because Allah is the creator of all his creatures, including human and their deeds. Al-Jabariyyah believe that everything is predetermined in the hand of Allah. Every human act is said to be forced by God. Menurut Jabariyyah, kefahaman mereka adalah menolak kehendak bebas kepada manusia, kerana Allah ni adalah pencipta semua makhluknya termasuk manusia dan perbuatan mereka. Al-Jabariyyah juga percaya bahawa semuanya telah ditentukan di tangan Allah. Setiap perbuatan manusia tu dikatakan dipaksa oleh Tuhan. Al-Jabariyyah were divided into a few sects which are Jahmiyah, Najariah and Dirariyah. Al-Jahmiyah believe that Al-Qudrah Al-Haditha means the human having no power upon everything and do not have the ability, Al-Istita'ah. They believe that all is predetermined by Allah SWT and human are forced, majbur in each of their act. Meanwhile, the Najariah are those who claim that human action are created by Allah, be it good or bad, and human act as an actor, which is muktasib to his action. This sect was in accordance with Al-Ash'ari view in stipulating the effect and influence ta'thir to the new willpower Al-Qudrah Al-Haditha or Kasbun as Ash'ari view. Jariah concept of human's will, which is Af'alul Ibad, which is created by Allah, and the human or the servant of Allah, which is Abdun, are only trying, muktasib. Meanwhile, in the aspect of human ability, al-istita'ah are considered before the act al-fi'li happen. This is close to the view of Al-Qadariyyah. Konsep Dirariyah tentang kehendak manusia, iaitu Af'alul Ibad, yang diciptakan oleh Allah dan manusia hanya berusaha, iaitu muktasib untuk melakukan sesuatu perbuatan itu. Sementara itu, dari aspek kemampuan manusia, iaitu al-istita'ah, dipertimbangkan sebelum perbuatan itu berlaku. Pandangan ini hampir dengan pandangan Al-Qadariyyah. Okay, menurut Jabariyyah, perbuatan manusia ni datangnya dari Allah. Manusia hanya terpaksa dan berserah mengikuti takdir sahaja tanpa boleh berusaha apapun. Barulah sempurna sifat Allah yang maha berkuasa. Ini merupakan pandangan golongan Jabariyyah. Okay, next. Qadariyyah views on the issue of Af'alul Ibad. Qadariyyah doctrine can be seen based on guidelines view, which states that man have power over his own action. Al-Qadariyyah group depends on the concept of free will, where human beings are free to do their deeds according to their own will, be it good or bad. Okay, doktrin Qadariyyah ni dapat dilihat berdasarkan pandangan guidelines yang menyatakan bahawa manusia ni berkuasa atas tindakan mereka sendiri tanpa ada campur tangan daripada Tuhan. Okay, kumpulan Qadariyyah ni dia bergantung pada konsep kehendak bebas, di mana manusia bebas melakukan perbuatannya mengikut kehendak mereka sendiri, sama ada perbuatan baik atau buruk. Okay, Qadariyyah also things that Allah SWT does not know about human deeds before the human do those deeds. It is known after the deed was done. However, there are some Qadariyyah group who believe that all humans' good deeds are created by Allah SWT, while bad deeds and vices are the creation of human beings themselves and have nothing to do with Allah SWT. Qadariyyah juga berpendapat bahawa Allah SWT tidak mengetahui tentang perbuatan manusia sebelum manusia tu melakukan perbuatan tersebut. Ia diketahui setelah perbuatan itu dilakukan. Namun, ada sebilangan kumpulan Qadariyyah yang percaya bahawa semua perbuatan baik manusia diciptakan oleh Allah, sedangkan perbuatan buruk dan maksiat adalah ciptaan manusia itu sendiri dan tidak ada kaitan dengan Allah. Kesimpulannya, Qadariyyah ni berpendapat bahawa perbuatan manusia ni datangnya dari manusia itu sendiri, bukan Allah yang ciptakan perbuatan manusia. Barulah sempurna sifat Allah yang maha adil untuk menghukum manusia kerana manusia yang bertanggungjawab secara penuh terhadap segala perbuatan mereka. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. My name is NURUL binti ROSLI. Matric number 1172121. Next, I will present about the arguments of Ahlu Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Asyairah and Maturidiah, Jabariyyah and Qadariyyah on Al-Ibad. Next. The arguments of Ahlu Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Asyairah and Maturidiah on Al-Ibad. Asyairah believe that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala creates all deeds, but they also believe in the concept of Al-Kasab based on the theory of Al-Kasab of Imam Ash'ari. Based on this theory, Al-Kasab refers to human deeds that arise through the intermediation between ability power and the will of God. Among dalil nakli that Asyairah brought to justify that Allah create the deeds of His servant is, Allah says in Surah As-Saffat, verse number 96, Auzubillahiminasyaitanirrajim, Wallahu khalaqakum wa ma ta'malun. Based on this verse, they argue that God create human deeds, thus Al-Ash'ari view that human deeds are created by Allah as well as Al-Kasab. Dekat sini, bagi kelompok Asy'ariyah, mereka berpendapat bahawa manusia mempunyai kasab, iaitu usaha, di mana kasab manusia itu menunjukkan penciptaan Allah yang berkuasa dan berkehendak mencipta akan perbuatan hambanya. Imam Asy'ari mengisbatkan kekuasaan Allah yang sempurna akan semua perkara. Maksudnya, Allah berkuasa mencipta semua perkara. Allah juga berkuasa menciptakan segala perbuatan, namun Imam Asy'ari lebih menegaskan tentang konsep Al-Kasab, iaitu Allah mencipta segala perbuatan manusia dan juga manusia mempunyai usaha ke atas perbuatan mereka. Konsep ini adalah perbuatan manusia yang timbul melalui perantaraan daya kekuasaan dan kehendak Tuhan. Next. For Al-Maturidi believe that Allah create the acts of human and He also emphasize on human power, which is Qudrah or capacity al-istita'ah, which is istita'ah al-Af'al, the act of free choice, that is al-ikhtiyar given by Allah to human beings. According to Al-Maturidi, Al-Ibad is in fact the motions, harakat and stillness, sukun. Allah has the power upon that. The power of Allah is beyond the power of human beings because His power is beyond every imperfectness, while human's power is imperfect. Allah is the creator and owner of all things. If Allah is not the owner of human acts, does mean His ownership is deficient, and this is invalid. Al-Maturidi argues that human acts are created by Allah and acquired for human. Based on that, he argues the justice inquires of two matters. First one, Allah is to be characterized on what he described upon himself, worthy of it, as Allah says, Auzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim, wa khalaqa kulla syai'in. And second, Allah is to be just and superior, as Allah says, wa ma rabbuka bizallamin lil 'abid. Dekat sini dalam kitab At-Tauhid, Imam Al-Maturidi menerangkan bahawa af'al ibad pada hakikatnya adalah harakat dan sukun, iaitu pergerakan dan kediaman. Iaitu diam. Allah berkuasa ke atasnya dan perbuatan manusia adalah di bawah kekuasaannya. Ini kerana kuasa ataupun daya manusia ni bersifat naqisah, iaitu kekurangan. Adapun kuasa Allah melebihi segala kekurangan. Maka Allah adalah pemilik segala sesuatu kerana dia adalah pencipta segala sesuatu termasuk perbuatan hamba. Next. And then the arguments of Jabariyyah on Af'al Ibad. The Jabarites is said to believe that Allah create all things including human deeds. Among the dalil nakli they brought is in Surah Az-Zumar, verse number 62. Auzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Allahu khaliqu kulli syai'in. Allahu khaliqu kulli syai' wa huwa 'ala kulli syai'in wakil. Based on this verse, it shows that Allah is the only creator of everything, include human deeds, and there is no creator other than Him. Creatures have no will and power and are forced in each of their deeds. In addition, they also argue that only Allah that wills and determines something, where no masyiah is given to human beings, and that masyiah only for Allah. This is based on a few verses of the Quran, such as in Surah Al-Insan, verse 30, وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلِيمًا حَكِيمًا. They also bring verses from the Quran that deny people power over their deeds and place that power only to Allah, such as in Surah Al-Anfal, verse number 17. فَلَمْ تَقْتُلُوهُمْ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ قَتَلَهُمْ وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى وَلِيُبْلِيَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ مِنْهُ بَلَاءً حَسَنًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. Dekat sini mengikut Muhammad Hazim dan Syekh Muhammad Hilmi yang diambil dari Abdul Rahman Saleh Mahmud dalam kitab Al-Qada wal Qadar fi Dawa'il Kitab Sunnah. Berdasarkan ayat Al-Quran ni yang Jabariyyah bawa, Jabariyyah dikatakan percaya bahawa hanya Allah mencipta segala sesuatu termasuk perbuatan manusia. Jadi dekat sini tiada usaha manusia. Allah adalah satu-satunya pencipta. Berdasarkan ayat Al-Quran ni, ia menunjukkan bahawa Allah adalah satu-satunya pencipta segala sesuatu termasuk perbuatan manusia dan tidak ada pencipta lain. Makhluk tidak mempunyai kehendak dan kekuatan dan terpaksa dalam setiap perbuatan. Di samping itu, Jabariyyah juga berpendapat bahawa hanya Allah yang menghendaki dan menentukan sesuatu di mana tidak ada masyiah yang diberikan kepada manusia dan masyiah itu hanya untuk Allah. Ini berdasarkan ayat Al-Quran dalam surah Al-Insan ayat 30. Next. Jabariyyah juga membawa dalil akli. The Jabarites also use dalil akli, that is, Allah has kudrah to create human deeds because Allah has already determined every acts and deeds of His servant before the human was created. Thus, they believe that every human deed or act that happened only because Allah willing to cause it to be happen. Human beings have no power and only forsake in their deeds. Next. And then the arguments of Qadariyyah on Al-Ibad. Qadariyyah is said to believe that human being has power over their deeds because they depends on the concept of free will. The Qadarites even believe that human beings deserve the reward and punishment for their good and bad deeds. To strengthen their arguments, they brought some dalil akli, which focus on the justice of Allah. They argue if human deeds are created by Allah, why human beings are rewarded if they do good and punished when commit vices or sins? Doesn't it is Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala himself who create the deed? It will show that Allah is being unfair to human beings. To strengthen their argument, they also bring dalil nakli from the Quran in Surah Ar-Ra'd, verse number 11. Allah says, Lahu mu'akibatum min baini yadayhi wa min khalfihi yahfazunahu min amrillah. Innallaha la ya'iru ma Innallaha la yughayyiru ma biqaumin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim wa idza aradallahu biqaumin su'an fala maraddalah wa ma lahum min dunihi min wal. Based on the Akli and Nakli proposition brought by the Qadariyyah, it shows that freedom of man in determining action in accordance with the power he had. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. My name is AINUN BINTI MOHAMAD. My metric number is 1172128. So I will continue with the analysis, the arguments. Okay, next. Okay, so based on what has been presented, okay, Af'al Al-Ibad according to Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the term Af'al does not carry the meaning of forced servant as understood by the Jabariyyah or slave trades and as held by the Qadariyyah. So, for example, a servant is required to strive for good in his life and avoid any misfortune within his means. In the context of illness, a servant must try or prevent the epidemic from spreading to himself, his family, and society. However, it is still subject to the destiny of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala that has been determined since the beginning. So, the view of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah are balanced and moderate between two extreme views, namely Jabariyyah, which denies human power with Qadariyyah on the one hand, which denies the provision of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala in human behavior. Okay, next. Okay, next, according to Jabariyyah, according to them, humans are like water that flows in various directions without will and without choice. For example, if a thief is, for example, then the act of stealing does not occur on his own will, but it is the qada and qadar of Allah. In other words, he steals not on his will, but God forces him to steal. So this understanding is an understanding that is an opponent and a rival to the Qadariyyah school. Next. Okay, next, according to Qadariyyah, humans have the authority to do all actions of their own will, whether they are good or bad. Therefore, he has the right to be rewarded for the good he has done and has the right to enter heaven in the afterlife. Also have the right to receive punishment for the crimes he has committed and to be rewarded with torment in return for hell in the next. Okay, for example, if a thief, then the act of stealing is on his own will and he deserves to be punished for the evil he did and be punished with the punishment of hell in the hereafter. According of Al-Ibad ideology, according to Qadariyyah, is the opposite ideology according to the Jabariyyah ideology. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, now to be continued with me again. My name is ATIKAH. My metric number 1172118. reconcile between the views Ahli Sunnah and Jabariyyah and Qadariyyah. So Ahli Sunnah wal Jama'ah when Al-Asyairah and Al-Maturidiah agree to connect Allah SWT with the servant through an intermediary that matches the nature of the deeds of Allah SWT with their servant known as Al-Ta'alluq connection according to Al-Asyairah and Takwin according to Al-Maturidiah. So Al-Asyairah describe the form or nature of Allah of Ahlu relationship with the servant as new, while Al-Maturidiah describe is Qadim. So while when leaning on slave, it expressed as Al-Ibad. So dekat sini mereka ada perbezaan di antara terms Af'alul Allah dengan Af'alul Ibad. Mereka describekan ia sebagai scope communication yang berbeza, iaitu dari segi al-lafziyah. And then next to Jabariyyah. Jabariyyah is an ideology and heretical sect in the creed that emerged in 2nd century. In Khorasan, Jabariyyah has the belief that every human being is a force by destiny without having choice and effort his actions. The main characters are Ja'ad bin Dirham and Jaham bin Safwan. Maksudnya kat sini, Jabariyyah mengatakan bahawa manusia ini pandangan dia adalah meyakinkan yang bahawa manusia ni tanpa ada pilihan dan untuk mampunya untuk melakukannya, sebab kerana apa-apa itu semua manusia. Jadi ideologi dia according to Shahrastani 548 Hijriah 1153 AD, Jabariyyah is an understanding that denies the deeds of the servant in fact and submit the deeds to Allah, that is man has no role at all in doing his deed, God decides everything. Jadi maksudnya kat sini Allah yang membuat semuanya, Allah yang mentakdirkan semuanya. Contohlah orang tu kalau dia buat jahat, maka Allah dah tetapkan dia buat jahat sampai dia masuk ke neraka pun dia buat jahat juga. Itu maknanya manusia tak ada kuasa untuk membuat pilihan sama ada nak buat baik atau jahat. Dia cuma sekadar kerana Allah yang kata kat situlah. Allah kata itu adalah takdir kau. Jadi mana yang previous presentation mengatakan bahawa manusia ini tiada pilihan, dan apa yang saya cakap sebelum ini, banyak scholar yang telah menolak pandangan Jabariyyah ni kerana mereka ini dikatakan telah mencemari sifat Allah tu yang sempurna, sebab apa-apa itu semua daripada Allah yang sepatutnya tidak sepatutnya. Jadi next, Qadariyyah. Qadariyyah in Arabic, Qadariyyah is an ideology and sect of heresy in the Islamic faith that emerged in the middle of the 1st century in Basra, Iraq. This group has the belief in denied destiny, which is that the actions of beings are outside the will of God and also not God's creation. Servants are free to deny their own actions, and it is the creatures themselves who create their own deeds and deeds without any contribution from God. So ideology from the Qadariyyah, they still believe that the deeds of the creatures are the abilities and creations of the creatures themselves, although now stipulates that God already knew all the deeds of the servant before their occurrences. Maknanya Qadariyyah ni yang dia kata manusia ini melakukan semuanya kerana Allah tidak ada campur tangan langsung. Maksudnya takdir Allah tu cuma apa yang selepasnya terjadi, itu yang Qadariyyah tu pandangan dia, yang mana manusia ni yang membuat tu sendiri. Jadi the belief of Ahli Sunnah which are in the middle, according to the Ahli Sunnah belief in destiny, that every human being has the choice and freedom to determine the will. Man is commanded to strive, that is commanded to do good and forbidden to do evil. So promised reward or threatened with punishment for the consequence of his deeds, while whatever he will do is determined, already written in his destiny, which every creature never knows how his destiny, good or bad, except after the occurrence of that destiny. So I took from the Al-Mila wa Nihal Ar-Rashtani Muhammad bin Abdul Karim. So flaw theological flaw in the history of Muslim. So kat sini nak jelaskan kalau ahli sunnah ni dia macam di pertengahan di mana manusia ini dia ada memberi pilihan sama nak buat baik atau buat jahat sebab di akhirnya akan ada takdir yang sudah tertulis di mana kita percaya bahawa Allah ni telah menjanjikan kita bahawa siapa yang membuat baik dia akan dapat pahala lah di selepas kematiannya, maksudnya di syurga. Manakala siapa yang buat jahat dia akan dapat neraka lah. Itu secara nak rekonsil kepada yang tiga-tiga tadi, maknanya kita kepada pilih pertengahan. Okay. Next, we will continue my pleasure friends.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is IZZATI binti AHMAD and I will continue identify the view that near to Quran and Sunnah. Okay, next slide. Okay. Based on the explanation that have been discussed just now, it can be summarized that the three sets of faith, namely the set of Ahli Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the set of Jabariyyah and the set of Qadariyyah, have different views on the matter of Al-Ibad. The Jabariyyah are those who deny the fact of deeds to the servant and rely on Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. While in the view of Qadariyyah, in the question of Al-Ibad, they say that the will of Allah has no decisive influence on human deeds. Humans are fully determined by their intellect in the determination of their action. Then in the view of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which according to the set of Asyairah, everything that happens in the world is based on the ruling contained in the knowledge and power of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, including the best. Next slide lah. Based on the views, what can be identified here, it can be observed that from the three views towards the matter of Al-Ibad, along with the argument, the views of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah are the new closest to the Quran and Sunnah. This is based on the holy verse of the Quran among the word of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in Surah An-Nisa, verse 78. Meaning, and if they get good result of life, they say this is from the side of God. And if they are afflicted with calamity, they say this is from something bad that you have. Say, O Muhammad, all that good and evil is from Allah. So what makes the people very understand the word, advice and teaching? The verse explain that everything that happen is guided by the will and destined of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Maksudnya kat sini, pendapat Ahlu wal Jama'ah yang paling dekat dengan Al-Quran dan Sunnah kerana pendapat Ahlu wal Jama'ah kita masih ada pilihan untuk bersesuatu tu. Jadi dalam Al-Quran ini nak mengatakan setiap sesuatu tu memang Allah dah tentukan, tapi dalam masa yang sama kita juga ada ikhtiar untuk melakukan sesuatu perkara tu. Okay, next slide. Okay, then for the next verse, meaning whatever good pleasure you find that it is from God, and whatever calamity befalls you, it is from your fault. And we have sent thee, O Muhammad, to all mankind as a messenger with mercy, and Allah is sufficient as a witness who proved the truth of this fact. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala explained in this verse that disaster and hardship that befall are from one's human. Therefore, it can be understood that although all matters and education are due to the provision of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, human beings are still given the choice to carry out their affairs. Jadi di sini dalam Al-Quran ada dua ayat yang saya bawakan, yang mana Allah berfirman, Allah yang berkehendak di atas itu, tapi dalam masa yang sama perbuatan tu juga kita ada pilihan untuk membuat sesuatu tu. Okay. Jadinya pendapat Sunnah wal Jamaah adalah lebih dekat dengan Quran dan Sunnah. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, next I will present about the unclear views on Af'al Ibad, which is from Jabariyyah and Qadariyyah. Jabariyyah is said to view that human deeds are said to be forced by Allah and no power is given to human beings to determine their deeds. They leave everything to the destiny of God, be it good or bad. Among the arguments they brought is that denying free will upon humans, because Allah is the creator of all His creatures, including human and their deeds. For them, everything is predetermined in the hands of Allah, including human act. If the Jabarites adheres to this argument, then there is no taklif, where human beings are responsible for every deed they do. And then Qadari's view on Af'al Ibad is man create his own deeds and human deeds have no relationship with Allah. This is close to the view of Mu'tazilah, where human beings are free to determine every action. They argue based on the verses of the Quran in Surah Ar-Ra'd, verse number 11, Allah says, Auzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim, lahu mu'aqibatum min bayni yadayhi wa min khalfihi yahfazunahu min amrillah innallaha la yughayyiru ma biqaumin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim wa iza aradallahu biqaumin su'an fala maraddalah wa ma lahum min dunihi min wal. Based on this verse, they assume that if God create human deeds, it means God also create evil because human deeds contain good and bad. Hence, it will show that Allah is unjust. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Siti RAHMATUN. I will continue to the conclusion. In conclusion, the determination of destiny is a secret of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala that is not known by anyone. Therefore, it is the duty of the servant to live in life for the best of their ability and effort. The view of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah in this matter of Af'alul Ibad, which is everything that happens in this world, is based on the ruling contained in the knowledge and power of Allah, including the action of creators are balanced and moderate between two extreme views, namely Jabariyyah, which denies the power of human, and Qadariyyah on the one hand, which deny the provision of Allah in human behavior. That's all from us. Thank you.